we are. Born to be kings. We're the princes of Smash TeeVee. And once again we go through a couple of movies and see whether or not you should check them out. Cause let's face it, there's plenty of entertaining stuff out there if you only know where to look. Aniara. A space cruise ship to Mars gets thrown out of course and needs to slingshot to get back on course. This, however, will take a while. Will the passengers stay civil or will this miniature society collapse? Aniara is a science fiction pure sang. It's one of those movies that shows you one thing while talking about another. Though not very subtle, it's interesting to see how the message behind the story gets told behind the veneer of science fiction. Aniara doesn't reinvent the wheel and doesn't bring you much you haven't seen before, but it tells its story in an enjoyable way, and if you like the feel of classic science fiction series and movies, be sure to check this out. Smash that. Boxcar Bertha. Roger Corman's 1930s crime story Boxcar Bertha features David Carradine and Barbara Hershey as Big Bill Shelley and Boxcar Bertha, two train-robbing lovers on the run from the law. Boxcar Bertha is loosely based on the story of the real Bertha Thompson and is very reminiscent of movies like Machine Gun Kelly and Bonnie and Clyde. Movies like this achieve to give you plenty of sympathy for the criminals, and this supposedly exploitative film adds the cute sexiness of Barbara Hershey to this mix. I couldn't help but notice the similar facial features of young Barbara Hershey in this movie with that of young Ellen Page, but that's something completely different. Boxcar Bertha is an enjoyable film with enough action, sexiness and violence to keep you entertained from start to finish, and, with a bit of luck, the ending will have you staring at your screen in silence. Check that. Galaxis. Feels like a mishmash of several other movies turned into something that kinda works. 80s babe Brigitte Nielsen plays a Terminator-type character whose world is in conflict with a Vigo-like character pursuing a crystal that is able to give total power to who holds it. It's quickly discovered that another crystal is located on Earth and all parties involved land on Earth in search of the crystal, involving a couple of unsuspecting humans in their 1987's Masters of the Universe plot. Galaxis, aka Terminal Force, is one of those movies that is so bad it becomes good. Made in 1995, it feels like a movie from a decade earlier. I had a good time watching this. Be sure to have enough snacks for this one. Check that. Hounds of Love is an Australian movie based loosely on the crimes of David and Catherine Burney and deals with a young girl that gets kidnapped, imprisoned and terrorized by the couple. The girl, played by Ashley Cummings, tries to escape several times, angering both captors and making them more unhinged as time goes on. Hounds of Love is a typical serial crime drama depicting the unbalanced and dirty nature of people who perpetrate these crimes. The movie doesn't shock, it isn't gruesome, there's no torture and minor scenes of assault, but, and this is often the case with Australian films in my opinion, probably because of all the sand, dust and sweat going on, it feels very gritty and dirty. An okay movie that doesn't require a lot of effort to watch. Check that. Iceman. There's something special about movies depicting the life of prehistoric mankind. From Quest for Fire and Missing Link to the recent Romulus and Remus, the First King, these films are defined by an epic feel, grand vistas and a lack of modern communication. Iceman is completely filmed in the ancient Grecian language and specifically states that this won't hinder you from understanding the movie. And it doesn't. We follow a Neolithic clan leader who sets on a path of vengeance when his entire village, save his newborn son, is slaughtered and their religious symbol is desecrated and stolen. Carrying his newborn child, he vows to kill the ones that have destroyed his whole life. The story of Iceman is loosely based on Atzi, the mummy that was found in the Ötztal Alps in 1991, although I'll leave it in the middle whether or not the story actually is about Atzi, seeing we all know how he came to his end. Smash that. One-Eyed Jacks. Directed by and featuring Marlon Brando as a bank robber who, after a 5-year stint in jail for robbing banks, visits his old partner in crime turned sheriff. Tensions rise hard when the two former gang members collide in love and business and eventually come to a head-on. Who will be the victor in the feud and who will, in the end, be proven to be the honorable one? This Mexican set bandits vs. lawmen story gets elevated by the performance of Brando and Karl Malden, whose characters' mutual distrust of one another combined with their stern and hard acting styles becomes a spectacle in itself. These two actors make this otherwise fairly cliché western definitely worth a watch. Check that. Sorcerer. William Friedkin always has been a fascinating director with a very particular style. From his 1971's The French Connection to 1973's The Exorcist, he always seems to capture a looming sense of dread in his movies. Sorcerer once again is one of those movies that's incredibly suspenseful despite being extremely grounded in reality, which, of course, adds to the suspense. Unlike what you might think, Sorcerer is not about wizards, warlocks and other magic users. It's about 4 men, 2 big trucks, one named Sorcerer, a long dangerous jungle road and a bunch of unstable, sweating dynamite that needs to reach its destination. Roy Scheider and the rest of the cast are excellent in portraying these men who are both desperate for survival and desperate to get the money for completing it. And at the end of the movie you will truly see what the cost of this pressure has brought them. A must-see movie. Smash that. T-34. A Russian movie about tanks shooting at each other in slow motion? Hell yeah. T-34 is the story of a tank commander who gets captured by the Nazi regime. Can we say that here? What? Why not? Oh. Yeah. Well, fuck it. And gets imprisoned in one of their camps. 3 years later he and his newly formed tank crew do a daring escape. With a tank. T-34, as you might have guessed already, is simple, schlocky fun and reminded me very much of the sniper game Sniper Elite that also deals with shooting stuff in slow motion. The effects aren't very high-tech, but it gives enough adrenaline that you're rooting for those boys in the tin can. For people who want a bit more realism in their tank movies, I'd suggest watching the 2014 Brad Pitt vehicle Fury instead. Check that. The Babysitters. Babysitters in movies, they're young, they're sexy, they're willing, and in this movie, they create an escorty service where lonely dads can relive their youth by fucking high school girls. The mix of forbidden sex, moral issues and egos turns the lucrative business into a dog-eat-dog venture, making things even more ugly. John Leguizamo, for once, isn't annoying, but his acting chops still leave something to be desired. Catherine Waterston and the other cast as tweens playing teens do a fine job, but overall it's a fairly routine movie with an expected outcome. Personally, I'd have enjoyed this movie a wee bit more if Alexandra Daddario had a more active role and longer scenes, but that's just me. As it is, it's okay. Check that. Tone deaf. Bed and breakfasts are definitely a thing, and they have crept into horror and thriller movies like wildfire. Tone Deaf features Amanda Crew, who rents a house from Robert Patrick's character, who just happens to be dealing with psychotic tendencies and tries to see his wish of killing people fulfilled. As with movies like 13 Cameras and The Rental, we get to see the snobbish yuppies at work as they demand to be treated like kings, but, eventually, heads with the people they rent from and get a dose of justice dealt to them. Tone Deaf is a very millennial movie, the way it's filmed, the story, the boomer versus millennial clash of generations, even the participation trophy society the main character was raised in. All this combined makes this movie a mediocre scarefest that only remains watchable due to Robert Patrick's performance as a more homicidal Walt Kowalski from the excellent Gran Torino. Unless you like Robert Patrick, and to be frank, why wouldn't you? Take a pass on this movie. Check that.